Tune in Between Two Bridges, episode 82, Death, Taxes, and NASCAR.
You're listening to Between Two Bridges, a business-to-business podcast. With your hosts, Joe Ferranti and Jerry Kenna. Produced by Nathan Kenna. Interviewing entrepreneurs, business operators, and investors. This episode is brought to you by Wash, because laundry shouldn't cost your time. Wash delivers. Sign up at pickupwashdeliver.com. Do the wash. Skip the hassle.
Between Two Bridges, episode 82. Joe Ferranti.
Jerry Kenna.
We're here again.
Introducing ourselves.
Well, we're just making sure if you jumped on episode 82, you know who we are, right? I mean,
Some episode, I'm going to say I'm Joe Ferranti. You're Jerry Kenna. Just see
if anybody catches it. Yeah.
Keep everybody on their toes.
We'll do that when we're the baby's voices. So, yeah, I mean, we're coming off a holiday, so that's kind of hard.
Yeah, it was. How'd you spend your Memorial Day?
We did a lot of running around. We had a lot of picnics and
Home Depot.
No, not Home Depot.
Bed Bath & Beyond. Didn't know if you had time. I actually watched Old School
while you were driving to Florida.
No, this weekend while I was in Florida, they had it on.
Yeah,
that scene was on. Actually, I only watched part of it, but that scene was on.
But when you first saw it, it didn't resonate like it does now.
No, but that's like the one of those lines that.
Yeah, we always, me and my one buddy, we would always say, "Bring your green hat." Yeah, because we're going streaking.
Snoop.
Yeah. So, but yeah, you run a lot. For
anybody that's younger than 20s, what the fuck are they talking about?
I deal with that. My girl, one of the girls who works for me is 25, and I have so many references to things that's part of being old.
It's like one of the greatest movies of all time that they could never make today.
Yeah, and I think our parents exposed us to stuff, so we were well-rounded.
Yeah.
So we knew the old movies, the new movies. Yeah. We knew the Legend of Josie Wells and what was the other one? Blazing Saddles. That was all referenced to us as kids. But so you did some traveling over the holiday.
I did.
Break.
I had a hell of a weekend. It was so. I posted it on Facebook. If anybody follows me on Facebook, they probably already know this story, but I'm going to say it again because it was kind of unlike me. Part of it was not spur of the moment, but some of it was, and it was a fun trip. So, during my career in my accounting business, I've bought out 2 different accountants. Okay. One I worked with actually in his home office for 8 years. The other one I bought out, I was introduced actually by my barber. He cut his hair too. And I was introduced to him. His name was Michael. And I bought out his company years ago. And I found out at the end of January this year that he had passed away. And he was probably in his mid to late 70s. I didn't know at the time. We talked maybe once or twice a year. Most of the time through email, maybe a phone call once a year. But it was a relationship that he was a car guy. So It was a relationship that when we did talk on the phone, it was a hour conversation. But we hadn't talked. And last time we did talk, this just didn't come up. But apparently he was diagnosed with bone marrow cancer in 2020, early in 2024. And he had been fighting it, and at the beginning of 2025, he got a flu. I don't know if it was a stomach flu or just a regular flu or what it was, but it killed him. And I found out at the end of January because I had sent him an email because I was working on a client that I actually took over that was one of his former clients that I took over for last year, and I needed some information from him. And I sent him an email at the beginning of January to get some data from him, and I didn't hear anything, and I just moved on. It was getting into tax season, and I was moving on with my thing, and I got a phone call from a friend of his that had access to his email, and he said, "Hey, I saw your email. I guess you don't know, but Michael passed away." But it hit me kind of hard.
Yeah.
Now, I wasn't as close to Michael as I was with Ray, who was the gentleman that I worked in his office for 8 years. And that at that moment, I thought, Ray moved, just as a little bit more of the backstory. Ray in 2016 decided to mostly retire. He still does a little bit of work, but he and his wife sold the house, moved to Florida. And they live in Orlando now. And I haven't seen his wife since 2016. I've seen Ray over the years. He'll come up every once in a while. But I haven't even seen Ray in probably 2-3 years. Yeah. So I decided when I found out about Michael that I need to take the time. I need to go down and see Ray and Marty. Ray's turning 83 this year. And I felt like if I didn't take the time to go spend some time with them, I was going to end up getting that call, and I was going to regret that for the rest of my life. Right. So I needed to take the time. So I went home that day and I told my wife, and I said, "Hey, I found out this today, and I decided that after tax season's over, things calm down a little bit. I'm going to go take a weekend. I'm going to go down and see Ray and Marty." And she said, "I agree with you 100%. You need to go do that." So fortunately, a really good friend of mine lives about an hour away from Orlando. So I called him and I said, "Hey, I'm going to do this. Can I crash at your place?" And he's like, "Fuck yeah, that sounds awesome." So that was the plan. I was originally going to fly down, spend the weekend at his house, drive up, spend a day rent a car, drive up, spend a day with Ray and Marty, and then fly home. As time passed, the Real ID thing happened. I got a little bit pissed off about that. And I decided, you know what? I don't want to fly down. I have a Corvette. I'm driving. I'm going to make this a road trip. Everybody thought I was out of my goddamn mind, that why the hell would you drive to Florida, especially for a long weekend, when you can be there in 2 hours? I think you probably even told me I was out of my mind.
Yeah, I think we talked about that last week.
And I was a little bit out of my mind. And about 12 hours into the 15-hour drive, I thought, what the fuck am I doing here? But it was an experience that I'm really glad I did. I don't know that I'll do it again. Certainly not all straight through like I did. But you don't get to see the country. Obviously, you don't get to see the country like you do behind the wheel of a car. So I left 4 a.m. Thursday morning, got behind the wheel of the car, headed south. Some water, some coffee, some nicotine pouches, headed south. It took 15 and a half hours, and I drove straight through from Pittsburgh to Melbourne. It was a long day. Now, I felt fine when I got there. I got there, I think it was, I guess, about 8 o'clock, 8:30. I felt fine as far as being tired, but 15 and a half hours in a racing seat, don't recommend it. I was a little bit over that. So I had decided on the way down, I talked to my wife and I was like, yeah, I'm over this seat. And she's like, why don't you take 2 days to come home? You know, you're going to leave Sunday anyway. Why don't you, Monday's Memorial Day. Why don't you just take 2 days? So I figured, all right, I'll do that. So drove down, spent Thursday night with my friend at his house, with his family. It was great. Got to catch up a little bit. Friday morning, I did a little bit of work, got some work done at his house, and then I drove to Orlando. Spent most of the day with Ray and Marty, which was phenomenal. It was like old times. Talked so much, had lunch. It was great. Yeah, they're doing well. Just like the day they left. Drove back down to Melbourne. Friday night, spent Saturday at the beach. It was great. The whole time I'm thinking, where should I stay Sunday night? Okay, so I'm all by myself. Part of me was like, I need to find somewhere that the car's going to be safe. I don't want to stay in some shitty area that I have to worry about the car. I don't want to come out the next morning, the wheels are gone, or the car's stolen because it's a long walk home. So I had to think about that. Part of me wanted to just kind of power as far as I could. So I had a short drive on Monday. Part of me wanted to find somewhere cool. But once you get past like Charlotte, there's not a lot of like real cool places to stop in West Virginia. Not that there's anything wrong with West Virginia, but like there's just not a whole lot of
Corvette
populated towns, right?
Yeah.
It's mining towns. It's just blue collar towns. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just not a whole lot to see, right? So along the regular route. So I started looking at like, do I divert to Bowling Green? That's too far. Do I divert to Nashville? Too far. I thought maybe about going up to Tail of the Dragon, too far out of the way. I thought about going to DC, but it was going to take too long to get to DC. By the time I got there, I was going to be like, oh, great. Now I'm in an expensive hotel and there's the White House.
And your car's on blocks.
Yeah. So I wasn't real sure. But then I was looking at the map and I thought, I'm going to be driving through Charlotte in North Carolina, and I've always been a NASCAR fan and a Dale Earnhardt fan. And I thought, where's Dale Earnhardt Incorporated Junior Motorsports? Where are those headquartered at? Is that near 77? So I looked it up, and it's in Mooresville, North Carolina, which is right off of 77. So I thought, well, that's probably a good place to stop. It's about 8.5 hours from Melbourne, about 7 hours from home. So it's over halfway. Not quite as far as I wanted to get on the first day, but it's a nice little town. Not have to worry about the car, something to do. So that was where I was going to stop. That's what I decided Saturday. So Sunday morning, I get up about 6 o'clock. Everybody was still in bed. I'm drinking my coffee and kind of waking up. I'm scrolling through TikTok, and I see a video, a clip of Kyle Larson, a NASCAR Cup driver, qualifying at Charlotte. And I thought, wait, the Coca-Cola 600's tonight. So I looked it up and was like, was it tonight? Is it tonight or is it last night? Well, it was Sunday night at 6 o'clock. So then I had to decide, okay, well, do I divert and stay the hell out of that area because it's liable to be a madhouse? Or do I double down on this and try to find a ticket to this Coca-Cola 600 and go to this race? I haven't been to a NASCAR race since I was in high school. I've always loved it. Anybody that thinks it's just cars driving around in circles, when you watch it on TV, it tends to be. If you've never been to one in person, go to one in person.
Go to Lernerville.
It's a completely different experience, and there's nothing like it. Yeah. So I thought, I want to do that. So I thought, you know what? Fuck it. I'm doing it. I'm going all in. So I started looking at tickets, and I found a decent ticket on Ticketmaster. It was a resale ticket, but it was a decent ticket to and I've always wanted, it was a Coca-Cola 600, which is, it's a big race for the Cup Series because it's for all of motorsports because it's a 600-mile race. So it's the longest race in motorsports. Besides like the 24-hour race, it's the longest regular race. And so I've always wanted to go to that race, and I thought, you know what, I'm doing it. So I got a decent ticket. It started at 6 o'clock, and I figured, well, if I'm late for the race, it is what it is. I just want to go there, experience it for some of it. If I go there, get there late, if I have to leave early, it is what it is. But I just want to be there for some of it. So I bought a ticket. I was still going to stay in Mooresville because it was only 24 minutes to the track. I left Melbourne at a little after 8 o'clock in the morning, headed to North Carolina. I got to the hotel at 5 o'clock, checked in, changed my clothes, ordered an Uber. I was at the track at 5:45. I made it for all the opening ceremonies, which it was Memorial Day, so it was incredible. Yeah. There was a regular flyover with jets. There was 2 military helicopters that actually landed on the infield. The Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, was the Grand Marshal. It was absolutely incredible. I watched most of the race. But I Ubered there because in my experience with NASCAR races, most of the time parking is in fields. And I didn't know if I was going to be able to find somewhere to park the car. And so I was like, I'll just Uber. And my fear was if I waited to the end of the race and there's 150,000 people all leaving at the same time, I'd never be able to get an Uber.
Or you'd pay more for the Uber than a ticket.
Well, yeah. So that was the thing too. It cost me $30 to Uber from the hotel to the track. It cost me $72 to Uber from the track back to the hotel. And I left with like 100 laps left in a race. So
yeah, it would have went up.
yeah, it would have been through the roof. And it was still a hell of a challenge just to get that Uber, even with that many laps left.
Yeah, wow.
So I left early, but it was an incredible experience. I posted a bunch of it on Facebook. But even the videos that I posted, it doesn't do it justice. I mean, the feeling of
that's what I was saying. Even like when you go to learn, like Lernerville, like you get like down low and you're there. It's
the volume, the feeling, the smell, it shakes your chest. It's absolutely incredible. So then I left Monday morning about 8:00, headed home, got home about 3:15.
What did Vinny have to say about you going to NASCAR without him?
So he was a little bummed, but I got him a Coca-Cola 600 hat from the track. I got Ainsley a NASCAR hat from the track. So they got some
merch.
As
the kids call
it. So they were happy about that. But it was just one of those spur of the moment experiences that I decided like, hey, listen, this is a trip that like I don't get to do very often.
Now it's a write-off because you talked about it on the podcast.
Right.
It's content.
Yeah, this is content. So, but it was a trip. Like I don't typically drive across the country by myself. I don't typically go on trips by myself. Wow, so yeah. It was a spur of the moment experience that I decided I'm going all in on, and I'm really glad I did. But sometimes when you're a business owner, and we tend to get really deep into the weeds in our business, and sometimes it's really hard to remove ourselves from the weeds and actually focus on the operations of our business and think about high level things, right. Operating procedures, how leadership, how we can do things differently, changes that we can make internally, things like that. And sometimes the only way to do that is to just get the fuck out of there for a minute. And when you're alone with your thoughts, whether you're on a motorcycle, which, I do a motorcycle trip once a year, and I do a lot of that by myself on a motorcycle. I'm with other guys, but on a motorcycle by myself, but or by myself in a car, it gave me an opportunity to really kind of self-reflect. I listened to some podcasts, but I'll tell you what I did. I've been listening to it on and off for a long time, and it's not a new book. It's been out for a long time, but one of my goals for this trip was to finish this book, and I did. And if you are listening to this podcast, you've not listened to this book, I highly recommend it. But I talked to you about this earlier. It's called Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babins. Like I said, I've started it a couple times over the last several years and never got through it. But I finished it on this trip. And I started it over again at the beginning of this trip and actually listened to it the whole way through. And the way they break it down, for anybody that doesn't know who those two guys are, they're retired Navy SEALs, and they saw combat in Iraq and Afghanistan. And once they retired, they started a company called Echelon Front, where they do consulting for businesses. And they wrote this book, and the way they broke it down is each chapter is broken down into kind of three parts. The first part is a story, a true story about combat and an experience that they had. And they're intense, and they're narrated by them. And each chapter, typically they alternate. Jocko will do one, Leif will do one. But they're intense stories of really just dramatic events that happened during the war. And you hear this story and that about how they had to lead their team and the decisions that they had to make. And then they give you the principle of this leadership decision that they had. And then they tell you a story about a consulting engagement they had with a customer and how they used that leadership experience in a business application. And each chapter is a different topic. And it really kind of puts into perspective how you as a business owner have to take a step back and look at things and take ownership of every aspect of your business. If you make a mistake, your employee makes a mistake, if something happens, it's on you. That's extreme ownership. It goes to you. Yep. And it's just really, really well done. I just started the second set of the series called the Dichotomy of Leadership. And I'm working through that one now too. But so it just gave me a few days to just kind of reflect, and I came back refreshed and ready to take everything on. So I feel good.
Good time of year for you, you know, to kind of get through that. You know, you're weathering the storm. To go back to like the Navy SEAL thing, I watched a documentary about Osama bin Laden recently.
Oh yeah, did you see that? I saw it on there, but I haven't watched it yet.
It's pretty good. I mean, it kind of all stuff you already knew, some stuff you didn't know, but I did not know. So SEAL Team 6 was obviously the SEAL team that took down Osama bin Laden. But I did not realize, I was under the impression that there's multiple SEAL teams. But like, I guess the guy that was the founder of SEAL Team 1 and 2, they were going to invade, like they were in Russia doing some shady shit. So they had 1, 2, and 6 because they figured if like 1 and 2 got out and 6 was still around, they'd be like, well, where the fuck's 3, 4, and 5? That was kind of the principle of that.
Oh, okay.
And I like, that's pretty like simple and genius, you know, like, you know, oh, we got 6. Well, where's the other 5? We got 2 and 6.
Yeah.
So kind of, I mean, those guys are legit.
Yeah, those guys are serious.
And you think like, where does it translate as a warrior into the workplace? But like,
it does.
Life's a big war game, dude. Like,
it is. It's all about it's the leadership thing, and there's a lot of those lessons that they learned over there about how to lead a team and leading. Obviously, my staff isn't.
Yeah, you can't put them through boot camp.
No, and you're also, you know, when they come to work, it's not likely that they're not going to make it home. You know, so they're not dealing with life and death situations and like that. But you're leading you're in a certain extent, you're leading your team into battle every day.
Right. And
sometimes during tax season, it seems like it more intense than others. But you have to learn how to. One of the things that they teach you is that even if you have a great team, if you're not leading them correctly, they will fail.
Yeah. I mean, I think that like when you think you have a great team is when you're your worst leader.
Yeah.
Because you give them all the slack in the world.
Yeah. And
it gets done. The job gets done until it doesn't get done. And then when it doesn't get done or something fucks up, it's really fucked up.
Right.
You know, and I've seen that. You know,
I've lived it.
Yeah, and you always live it, I think, as a business owner because you're like, you don't want to overmanage. Like micromanagers is the worst trait that any business owner can have, I believe.
Yeah, and that's a problem that I have is that when I worked in corporate, I hated being micromanaged.
Right.
And I had some really intense micromanagers as supervisors, and I hated it. So when I hired employees, I never wanted to be a micromanager, and I still don't. But then I probably took that to an extreme where I gave my staff so much slack that I expected them to just kind of do their thing. And I'm not saying that they just they're not working or they weren't working. But that I didn't give them the proper direction or training or guidance on what exactly I'd expected from them. So there's a line between being a micromanager and being a leader. And you have to make sure that you're leading your team, not necessarily micromanaging them. You have to empower your team. You have to empower them to make decisions and feel fulfilled. But if you're not leading them, then they're they will tend to feel lost and not feel like they're contributing. And people need guidance.
Yeah.
Not babysat, but leadership.
Yeah, I mean, it feels good to get a task completed, right? So if you don't have any tasks for the day and you're just working, you don't ever have that sense of like mission accomplished, you know? And I mean, we're on the military thing, and I remember that speech where the guy was like, they teach you in the military to wake up in the morning and make your bed.
Yeah.
And it's not because they want you to have a clean, neat bed to go back to, but it's like, that's mission number one, and we've already accomplished something.
Task
today.
completed.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why like a lot of people are big fans of lists, because you get to check it off, and the satisfaction you get from checking something off.
Nothing feels better than a completed list.
Right. And I think that if you have employees that you're letting them make their own list, you know, and then now I think also in that same vein is like you're asking them to make their own list, but their priorities and your priorities are two different. So now you're throwing stuff onto their list, and they can't get their list done. You know?
And I think another challenge that we have in today's day and age is with work from home employees, especially when you have independent employees that take on their own tasks, is you can have an employee that is very responsible and be working on tasks and doing their thing and getting shit done, but just because you don't know what they're doing from minute to minute, you may not think they're doing anything. Right. That doesn't necessarily mean that. But at the same time, you start adding stuff to their list and they're sitting there thinking, Jesus Christ, I'm doing all this other stuff. But your boss may not know that.
Yeah. I ran into that problem at a young age. Like I was working for a heavy highway construction company, and anytime I'd have to go back to the shop to get something to do what I had to do, the guys in the shop needed help. So I would stop to help them, and like my shit was falling through the cracks, and I'd say like, look, but I helped them do all this shit. Like, yeah, it's stupid shit, but they got a lot done today because I was helping them. And then it's like, well, your shit's not done. So it's like a fine line with people, and you got to find personalities. Like it takes a while. Like if you have a new person that's working for you, it takes some time to like understand who they are as a person. And like we've had people on here that say hire fast, fire faster. And I get that, but like sometimes it might be 6 or 7 months until these other habits show up or these other problems show up. And then you're like, well, now I got to shit can this person. You know what I mean? Like,
and you know, it's tough. That's a tough decision to make. And it's not always easy to do, but you have to do it, because nothing will ruin team morale and good employees faster than bad employees.
Right. And especially in like a situation where like we're essentially a manufacturing plant. I tell people we're in the service industry, but on a 9-to-5 basis, we're in a manufacturing setting. So like if person X is not getting done what they need to get done and we're paying them what they're getting paid, now everybody suffers.
Yep.
You know, so it's business is a big balancing act, you know, but it's nice to hear people that bring their other traits into business, how they would handle it, because all you're doing is gathering information. Like you're not going to come in here in camouflage and start yelling at your employees.
Exactly. And that's, I guess the final chapter of that book is the dichotomy of leadership. And that's the title of their second book, is that it's a balancing act. You can't go in there and be extreme, and you can't go in there and start yelling and screaming and acting like it's boot camp. It's not. It's balance. Being a good leader is understanding the balance of being direct and blunt and explaining your expectations to your staff and holding them accountable, but also compassion and empathy and understanding. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there is a balance.
Yeah, my like situation is like if I know what I need to get done for the day and like there's 3 or 4 things and I hang it to someone and I'm like, this needs to be pressed for today. If that's done, then they've hit the expectation. You know, now I've never had this happen, but like if I shut the boiler off and then now we're looking for those same 3 things that I gave you, that becomes a problem.
Right.
But so like those things will be able to teach you how to address that problem.
Right.
I still think it would be funny if we like went to like old school, like Ralph's Army and got like camoed out and like face black and just like, hey, we're going to go to work as a boss today, like a hardcore boss, and just roll in.
Line everybody up, just start screaming in everybody's faces.
Thank you for listening. And now a brief word from our sponsor. You've got a full plate. Kids, meetings, workouts, side hustles. There's better things to do than laundry. Introducing Wash, laundry reimagined for the modern world. Schedule your pickup in seconds via the convenient web app. Wash picks up your clothes, cleans with care, and brings them back fresh and ready to wear. But it's more than garments. From bedding and table linens to shoes, hats, purses, and more. Wash handles all your life's fabric, leaving you more time to do you. Visit pickupwashdeliver.com and see how convenient it can be to do the wash. And now, back to the show.
Yeah, so that's the leadership's always going to be there, right? But now in your business, and a lot of businesses are going to be happy to hear,
maybe
what do they call it? The Beautiful Boy Act?
The beautiful is that what we're talking about now? You want to talk about the Beautiful Bill Act?
The Beautiful
Bill, the Big Beautiful Bill.
I just always think about that beautiful boy.
Such a stupid fucking name.
Well, yeah, but you know the song like Beautiful Boy. It's
no, I don't know that song.
I used to sing it. My wife and I sang it to Graham when he would go to bed when he was a baby. But I always, when I hear about this, I think like, dude, leadership's important. Like, you can't let the president name shit like this.
Yeah, somebody should have been like, hey, can we name it something less stupid? So, yeah, this is big. So, a little bit of a backstory. So, anybody that's not paying attention to tax law, you should be. The tax jobs in the term tax bill, Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017 that went into effect January 1st, 2018, is set to expire 12/31 of 2025. So they need to kind of get off their ass and do something, or else we're going to go back to 2017 tax rates, which nobody's going to be happy with. And a lot of things are going to change. Standard deductions are going to be about cut in half. The tax rates are going to go back down, or go back up, rather. There's a lot of things that are going to go away. It's really just not good for anybody. And so they need to address this. Trump campaigned on tax cuts and everything. He talked a lot about no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security. Talked about a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of stuff in here, and it passed the House. So I think it's time. The Senate has not yet voted on this, so this is not final, but there is some information in here that I think we should discuss to just give everybody an idea of what this stuff is and what it means to you, because there's some good things in here. There's some stuff in here I'm going to talk about that, you know, is going to be a contentious issue with people. But for the most part, it's going to help a lot of people in their taxes. So, so we'll just dive right in. All right, so let's start with the no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. Okay, so that is in this bill, and it passed the House. Now, it only applies to federal income tax, does not apply to Social Security or Medicare, and it will likely not apply to many states. It may apply to some. Now, some states calculate their tax on adjusted gross income, so that would calculate into that. But not all states do that. Pennsylvania, for instance, does not. So it's going to depend on whether the states decide to adopt this. We don't know. It's going to just depend. I would say that your more conservative-leaning states might adopt it. Your more liberal-leaning states are not likely to. It also is going to depend on the state budgets, because this is going to have an impact on state budgets. So each state is going to be different. So you're going to have to check with your local, your home state to decide whether this applies to you, but for federal income taxes, according to the bill that passed the House, tips and overtime wages will be exempt from federal tax. So that's a pretty big deal. That is not a deduction. It just basically the way this tax is, the way this bill is written is that on your W-2, there's a federal wages. It just won't be included in that federal wages box. So that will just not show up on a tax return.
I'm curious to see what like the 941 side has to look like though.
So that's part of this that we just haven't figured that out. The IRS is going to have to issue guidance on that. But basically, I mean, there's already kind of precedence for that because there's already things that are deducted out of your federal wages. So, 401k deductions, health insurance deductions are already deducted out of those federal wages. So this would just be something that would also be deducted, but it's something else that your payroll company or your payroll person at your office, whoever does the payroll processing, if you do it in-house, will have to calculate that number out of. Now, I'm sure there's going to be companies that are going to try to come up with some sort of loophole, and all of a sudden people are going to be
minimum wage,
paying lower rates and working minimum wage or working overtime. And, I don't know. It's going to be weird. There's going to be people that are going to be trying to work the system, I'm sure. But the way this bill is written, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. So that's going to be beneficial. And most of the time, if you're getting tips, you're getting overtime, those are middle class. Those are middle class families. So that's beneficial to middle class families. So that is supposed to start, and that applies to income starting January 1st, 2025. So that's retroactive. This provision would start 2025.
For the next
so
tax.
This would be for next tax season. The next thing is, then he campaigned on this. He's talked about it a lot, is deducting interest on loans on American-made vehicles. So this is another one that's going to take some deciphering, but basically the way this is written in the bill is that the final assembly has to be in the United States. So it doesn't have to be an American company. It just has to be final assembly here. With that said, there are American companies that are doing final assembly in foreign countries. So for instance, my truck was assembled in Canada. It would not qualify. Same thing if it was assembled in Mexico.
Yeah.
Some GM vehicles are assembled in Korea, in South Korea. So those would not qualify. But on the other hand, Toyota, BMW, Honda, they have plants in the United States. So vehicles that, those vehicles that are assembled here, they would qualify. The vehicle has to be purchased in 2025. Any vehicle purchased prior to January 1st, 2025 would not qualify. So if you have an existing loan for a vehicle purchased in 2024 or older, you cannot deduct it. Another thing to mention here, when this first was talked about, my big question was, do you have to itemize in order to take this deduction? Is this part of Schedule A or is this on the 1040? This is not a Schedule A deduction. You do not need to itemize to take this deduction. This comes off of your 1040. This will reduce your adjusted gross income. So this is not limited to just people that itemize. This is for everybody. So this is going to be big, because what this is liable to do is you're going to see a spur in people buying new cars. You're going to see I think you're going to see a lot of companies that, like General Motors, that are all of a sudden going to be relocating final assembly locations. For instance, I drive a Silverado, and some Silverados are manufactured in the United States and some are manufactured in Canada.
Yeah, Ford's like that also.
Right. Ford does the same thing. Dodge does the same thing. I could see those companies saying, hey, we already have the facilities and the assembly lines to assemble them all in the United States. Let's just move them all here because we're going to sell more, because we'll be able to do that.
And they're going to dodge a tariff.
They're liable to dodge a tariff, and they're liable to be able to sell more because now I'm going to be able to write it off of my personal income tax return. Now, it also should be mentioned, if you're buying the truck in a business name, it's a business deduction. None of this matters because the interest is deductible anyway.
Right. It's just going to affect pricing overall.
It could affect pricing overall. So this is that's a big deduction. This could have a lot of snowball effects that could spur a lot of vehicle sales and impact production, manufacturing in the United States, which could be good.
Rates and deductions change the way vehicles are bought and sold. It's just the way it is. It's always been that way. I mean, think about when we were kids, or even when we started driving, you could get a 5-year loan for a vehicle.
Yeah.
Vehicles were $35,000 new because they had to make it make sense over 5 years. Then they went to 6.
No, they're
Then
7.
they went to 7, and now you can even go 8 years on a vehicle.
Oh, really?
And it's like, that's the advertised price, $302 a month for 8 years.
Yeah.
On a cruise. It's like, what?
Yeah.
So that they know the auto manufacturers are not dumb.
Yeah.
That's why I do believe that it.
I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that these cars are probably more reliable and have a better lifespan.
You'd hope.
I mean, a lot of these companies are offering 100,000 mile warranties now. Right. A 10-year, 100,000 mile warranty. So if you got a 10-year, 100,000 mile warranty, maybe it's not that risky.
Yeah, you look at 100,000 miles a little different now.
Yeah,
it used to
exactly.
be like 50,000. We won't even touch it.
When we were kids, if you financed more than 5 years, you were nuts because that car may not last 6 years.
Right. And I think that also impacted like the prices when they extend the financing, like Escalade, Cadillac.
Yeah.
Like we're going to charge $115,000 for a vehicle and you got to pay that off over 5 years. No way.
It's not attainable.
But when you switch that number.
Dude, these monthly payments too. I mean,
$1,000 to buy a vehicle.
Yeah, you can't. I remember a time when $200-$300 for a car payment was normal. Now, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, $1,100, $1,200, $1,800. That's like typical for a car payment. That's crazy.
Bananas. Yeah. I don't understand that at all. But we're gonna have somebody come in and talk about this.
Yeah.
Another car guy, right?
Yeah, we have a car guy coming in. Can't wait to talk to him. The next thing that has been a point of contention on the original Trump tax bill from both sides, and it's one of the things that always was a sticking point for me, because when the original tax bill came out, you're always going to have, you have the people on the left that always say that the tax bills only benefits the rich. You have the people on the right that say, no, it's for the middle class. So the state and local tax limitation. Okay. So let me explain what that is. On the original tax bill of 2017, on your Schedule A, your itemized deductions, you could only write off $10,000 of state and local taxes. Now that included state and local income taxes, that included real estate taxes. That's the maximum amount you could write off for itemized deductions, $10,000. So what bothered me is that the people that had more than $10,000 worth of state and local taxes were higher earners, right? People that had high taxes. So I didn't understand how anybody could say that it only benefited the wealthy whenever that limitation hurt. And really it hurt even upper middle class.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't take hard. It's not hard in Allegheny County to get to $6,000 to $7,000 in property tax.
Right. And then in Pennsylvania, there's 3.07% in state tax. So if you make $100,000 a year, you're at $3,000 in state tax, 1% for local tax, you're at $4,000. And now
you've got a $200,000 house.
You're at $6,000 and you're there.
Yeah.
Okay. So it didn't take much to get to that $10,000, which then made it very difficult to itemize. So a lot of people were taking standard deductions on the 2017 tax bill. The majority of my tax clients are taking standard deductions because of the state and local tax limitation. So the one beautiful bill increases the SALT deduction, state and local tax deduction, to $40,000 if you make under $500,000 as a married taxpayer.
It's helping the middle class.
So it's helping the middle class. So if your joint return, your adjusted gross income is $500,000 or less, and your state and local taxes are up to $40,000, you can write off. So that means that more people are going to be able to itemize, which means now your mortgage interest, especially now with mortgage rates being higher, that's going to help a bunch of different things, because what ended up happening with so many people taking standard deductions is that I saw a reduction in the amount of people that were donating to charity, because people were seeing that they weren't getting the benefit, which is a shame, because people donate, let's face it, people donate for tax write-offs, okay? But if I'm not getting a tax write-off because I'm stuck in this standard deduction world, they're not donating, okay? So if I'm now able to itemize on my tax return and I can write off these charitable contributions, they're more likely to donate to charity. So I think you're going to see a spike in charitable contributions, and you're going to see tax savings because you're going to see more taxpayers qualify for itemized deductions. So that's a good thing for the majority of taxpayers. So that's a big change. The next big change, as of right now, the child tax credit is $2,000 per child if you're under 17. Okay. It's a weird year. I don't understand it. I answer that question all the time. Why is it at 17, not 18? Once your kid turns 17, it goes from 2,000 to 500. I don't know why it's 17. It is. I didn't write the rules. Okay. As of right now, as of this tax bill, it will increase to $2,500. That goes from 2025 to 2028. After 2028, it goes back down to $2,000. So it's a temporary 3-year increase of $500 per child as an additional child tax credit. So that'll be a nice little extra credit.
I've always kind of laughed at that, like
kids.
How far from reality it is. I mean, I spend $2,000 in waffles.
Yeah, I mean, the government's not here to subsidize you having kids.
Right.
But,
not us.
Not us, no. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, some people maybe. The other thing that they're doing, so there is so they called it a pass-through deduction enhancement. I believe what they're referring to is the qualified business income tax deduction, which is if you have business income from a Schedule C or an S Corp or a partnership, you can take a 20% deduction on that off of your income. They're increasing that from 20% to 23%. So that'll be a nice little extra deduction for business owners. So that'll be nice.
That covers the root of it.
What's that?
That covers the basis of it.
No, we got some more. So he is creating a MAGA savings account. Okay. So basically what this is any child that's born from 2024 to 2028, there will be an automatic savings account created for that kid with $1,000 in it. Okay. Parents can contribute to that account in addition to that throughout the time that kid's there, as until they're 18 or whatever. Any growth within that account is tax-free. Now, there's a lot of question marks on what exactly you're allowed to use the money for, whether there's going to be contribution limits and things like that. But it's basically, the idea of it is similar to like a 529 plan, but it's not going to be a state-run plan. It's going to be a federal-run plan. But it's basically to try to help parents create some sort of savings basis for their kids. And the federal government's going to throw $1,000 in it per kid to start out, but only if the kid is born January 1st, 2024 through December 31st of 2028. After that, the account will still exist, but there will not be a $1,000 bonus thrown into it. So we'll see how that goes. There needs to be a little bit more guidance on what they're allowed to use the money for. Once the kid turns 18, so the account is actually in the kid's name, but the parents are in control of the account till the kid turns 18. And then once the kid turns 18, they take ownership of it and they have control of it. But there's a question on, are they allowed to take it? What are they allowed to take it for? And that kind of thing. Whether it'll be allowed to be used for like education or housing or health expenses and things like that. So we're still waiting for more detail on what exactly that's going to be, but that's going to be the MAGA savings account. Corporate tax rates will be maintained at 21%, but made permanent. Bonus depreciation and Section 179 expensing will be preserved and expanded. They're implementing stricter work requirements on Medicaid and SNAP programs. They're adding verification procedures and limits benefits for higher income recipients and prohibiting Medicaid funding for gender affirming care and certain nonprofits. Regarding education, it's ending subsidized federal student loans. It's introducing a workforce Pell Grants for trade schools, and removes regulatory authority on gainful employment standards. And it's repealing most clean energy tax credits from the Inflation Reduction Act. It adds $150 billion for the defense modernization, allocates $70 billion for border security. So fiscal impact, this is the downside. It's estimated to increase the deficit by $3.8 trillion over the next 10 years. That's not good.
No. But I think that's part of like the whole tariff thing and bullshit.
Yeah. So the House passed it. The Senate is still debating it. One of the biggest areas of contention is just how much it's going to expand this deficit. And
well, we're on a higher rate of deficit than that right now.
Yeah, we are. And 3.8 trillion over 10 years is honestly, in the trajectory that we've been in, is probably a drop in the bucket. But it's it's terrible.
Time will tell.
Time will tell.
Yeah.
I'm a little disappointed in the fact that I was hoping for a plan that was going to be more budget neutral.
Yeah.
I'm more of a I don't know. I was putting more priority on that. But there's some good things here. And I think that, like I kind of said about the interest deduction on automotive, there's a lot of ancillary benefits to these things where it's going to increase, manufacturing jobs in the United States. It's going to increase sales of vehicles. It's going, there's a lot of things like that where there's a lot of extra things that are going to happen because of this. But we've said it before. If you ever want to know what they want you to do, look at the tax code.
Right.
When Biden was in office, what did they want us to do? They wanted us to buy electric vehicles. They wanted us to make our homes energy efficient, clean energy. They were pushing that stuff. So what they do? They pushed energy credits.
Right.
They manipulate behavior with the tax code. So right now, the big push is bringing labor back to the United States, and So
I just play a devil's advocate with that a lot. I think that if you look at jobs that are hard to hire, it's labor jobs. So you might bring the jobs back, but you got to find the people to do them. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But if they pay right,
I think. These union jobs, these manufacturing jobs for the auto industry. These guys they're not making $18 an hour, bro.
Yeah. No.
Some of these guys on these assembly lines, they're making $40, $50, $60 an hour.
Yeah, I just worry, because our parents, they were trained to man, if you're going to pay me that kind of money, I'll shovel shit. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I just would
These are union jobs.
Yeah.
They're not, I don't think they're going to have a hard time filling those jobs, and they have good benefits and,
time off and personal time.
I don't think that's going to be a big issue. I fear. Listen. There's a reason why these companies moved that production offshore, right? So It's a cost savings.
Right.
Now, I think it's funny though that you can buy one Silverado that's built in the United States and you can buy the next one that's built in Canada and there's no price difference. You know what I mean? They're just making more money on the one that was built in Canada, right?
Yeah.
But I guess it all comes out in the wash. It's all part of their overall profit margin. So their overall gross profit on those vehicles is going to decrease. So does that mean that the price of these vehicles is going to go up?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's been the trajectory for the last 20 years, right?
Yeah, and I mean, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you could have went and spent $30,000 on a work truck, and those days are gone.
Yeah, and I was talking to somebody today, and I said, every town had one or two used car lots.
Yeah,
and they're gone, but they'll be back.
Yeah.
People are going to be buying, you used to be able to buy, like we were $3,000-$4,000 car.
I mean,
if the interest rates are right, they won't.
Yeah, but I think a lot of those used car lots are gone because of places like Carvana.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was with my buddy this weekend, I mean, he's thinking about buying a new truck, and he's not on Auto Trader looking at car lots. He's on Carvana looking at what they have, because you have a national directory of everything they have, and it doesn't matter where it's at because they'll bring it to him.
Right. And like you said, you have all the options. You can put in the trim that you want. It's like buying a new car. You're just saving the depreciation off the top. And
exactly.
It's an interesting concept. I mean, because the other thing too is like, we're in a very fortunate time where like you have a car, your wife has a car. Every household has two cars. Like, it's just the way we operate now. We were kids. Not every household had two cars. There was one family car, Dad got dropped off work. Mom took the kids to school. She did what she had to do.
Yeah, and we had two cars, but we always had like one piece of shit and one
that was in the shop.
Decent car.
Like, Dad didn't have to get dropped off at work every day.
It was one car payment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We had one piece of shit that was paid
down the road
off,
that was your friend.
and we had one car that had a car payment. And then when that car was paid off, we got rid of the piece of shit and got a car payment on that car. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'll never forget. I was having a conversation, I think, with my brother and my stepdad. My stepdad was like, I used to get my paycheck on Friday. I'd put $1,000 in my savings. I'd buy a large pizza, a case of beer, pay my truck payment, and then I was good for the week, And my brother said, like, because he was like, he's always got like a question to your answer, He said, yeah, but you didn't have a cable bill. You didn't have a cell phone bill. You think about all these things that we pay out now. It's like,
all these subscriptions on these apps and all this. I mean,
it's crazy.
It's so
where
much.
does it end? I don't know. But I mean, you got to start giving people some incentive. Like, you take the tax off overtime. People for years have said, I'm not working overtime. I refuse it. Take the tax off of it. You're going to have some people that want to work some overtime, in a legit scenario. You got a guy, you might be able to eliminate 10 workers because you got guys that are like, I'll work Saturday. But for years, guys are working Saturday for free because then they had to work Sunday to make a little extra money because the tax man was taking it off. So, I mean, you got to have some faith in what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
It's what we're stuck with for the next, 4 years, 3 years at this point. But
yeah, just got to see how it goes. I think that we're going to see if this goes through. I think next tax season, I think people are going to be pleased with the results. I think we're going to see positive momentum in people's refunds and more money in people's pockets.
Yeah.
Which I think right now with the cost of life, I think that we need what we need every dime we can get. Right?
It's a shame too, because like everybody wants the government to answer their problems and everybody wants them to get it right. But we're all just throwing shit against the wall to see what sticks. You know what I mean? Like, just the nature of life, Yeah. So I look forward to seeing what they have to say about it. So it passed one half of the problem, and we'll see what happens, And it's not like, I don't think that this, I'm going to call them a regime for the lack of a better term. I don't think that they're so like we're right, this is going to be right. And if it's wrong, that they wouldn't be hesitant to just rip the Band-Aid off and figure something else out. Like in 2 years, if we have all these problems with it, they'll just go back to the table.
Yeah, we'll see.
I'd hope. I hope.
Yeah.
It's like back to that wish in one hand, shit in the other, and see which one fills up.
The other
first.
thing too is things take time. You're going to see decreases in taxes sometimes increase revenue because you increase productivity. You increase revenue as far as, people make more money. So now they're paying more in taxes that way. Right. You'll see people start to sell investments. You'll see people, money starts moving.
Yeah. But it's got to move here. It's got to move stateside.
Exactly.
And like I was thinking when you were talking about the vehicles, it's like, vehicles is like primarily the biggest purchase a lot of people will make, vehicles and homes.
Right.
But I think one of the things they should probably, it's probably too late to add now, but like if you're looking at two different machines for your company and one's built here, because like an excavator is a lot more than a truck.
Yeah, but if it's your company, it doesn't matter. The interest is deductible. But
incentivize some of that stuff.
Yeah, but if you're looking at buying a car for your wife and you're deciding between a Ford Explorer
or a Ram ProMaster
and a Hyundai that's built in Korea, then maybe you're going to buy that Explorer because it's built here and you can write off that interest. Yeah. That's going to change people's spending habits. And now all of a sudden, I'm going to go back to, you're going to see, like with these tariffs, okay? I mean, I don't know what they're going to end up doing with these tariffs and whether they're going to stick or whether they're just him blowing smoke up their ass to try to make these countries, be more fair or whatever, right? But one thing that did happen was whenever he started talking about it, Volkswagen, who owns Audi and Porsche, announced that they were going to, there was a plant in the United States that they had earmarked to start building EV Volkswagens. And they changed it and decided they're going to instead use it to build Audis and Porsches. Because that right now, every Audi and Porsche was built in Germany. And instead, they were going to start building Porsches and Audis for the U.S. market in the United States so that they could avoid the tariff. That solved the problem. That accomplished what he was trying to accomplish. What he's saying isn't that he necessarily wants to charge Volkswagen 25% on every vehicle. He wants them to build them here.
Right.
So if you want to sell them here, build them here. So if they can take and say, okay, well then we'll build those cars here, great. Hire Americans, build them here, mission accomplished.
Yeah, and just because we're on this car thing, one of the things we talked about with Lou is Tesla can sell a car on a Sunday.
Yeah.
Because they're a manufacturer selling cars. Well, I think that would change that a lot too. If you're building them here, they could, I don't know all the ins and outs of the blue laws, but like, how shitty is it that you can't go buy a car on a Sunday?
Yeah, I was reading about that, and it's funny because there's a lot of discussion about that because people will get all up in arms about it. Well, I can't go buy a car on a Sunday, but then I've read articles, and they've interviewed people that own dealerships and car salesmen, and they've also interviewed customers. And actually, it seems like the general consensus is everybody's kind of okay with that.
Yeah, everybody needs a day off. It's like can't get a haircut on Monday.
And it's not only that. Yeah, the salespeople need a day off. The owners are good with having a day off. Car salesmen work a lot of hours.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, the customers are okay with that because that's their day that they could go walk the car lot without being hassled by a salesman.
We talked about that with Lou. Yeah, I like that.
So, I mean...
That was part of the thing I liked with Carvana. You're pretty much walking the car, and you could just keep hitting X in the bottom right-hand corner and just keep looking at vehicles.
Yeah, I looked at trucks with my buddy this weekend, and we looked at all these different trucks, and you're looking at every little nick and cranny and every scratch and every little imperfection of this vehicle. You know everything about it.
Spoiler alert. They make those vehicles look real clean in them pictures.
Yeah.
They got a real good photographer,
Well, I actually noticed that in those pictures that it didn't seem like those trucks were super clean. Yeah. Like I saw some dust and dirt in the cup holders and stuff, and I thought to myself, like, they don't really do a very good job detailing these trucks before they send a photographer in there.
Right, but what they do is they detail them, I guess, when they get to these places. They had someone back there cleaning them before they got them in the...
Yeah, which is what they should do pre-delivery, like a PDI.
Yeah. one drawback I saw today was I think now my daughter has the concept of mine that you just get a token and you just get a car. And I'm like, you don't understand.
Is that what happened?
Yeah, because like when you finalize your paperwork, they have like a nice Bose speaker in there that plays all this funny music, like the sound effects.
Like it's a big vending machine.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, we'll talk off air about my business plan for Carvana moving forward. But yeah, it was a spectacle.
Yeah.
But like, whenever I get the first payment due in the mail, I'm going to show her that and make her write the check.
Yeah. It's not a quarter.
Yeah, it's not a silver token. So, but yeah, I mean, I like, I'm hesitant to say this, but we have a car guy coming on. I talked about it earlier, and he'll be here next week.
Yeah, our guest this week had a dental emergency and had to cancel. So we'll get him rescheduled as soon as we can. But we're moving on, and we pivot. That's what we do as business owners. Yeah. We pivot.
That's it. So. But it's always good to get into the weeds with the tax code.
This came out, and I thought this is a perfect thing to talk about. Everybody's on the edge of their seat trying to learn about the new tax bill. I know everybody's excited about it, but there's some good information here, and this is stuff that people want to know about. This is going to impact a lot of people.
For 90% of the population, they're not thinking about taxes right now. They're just cruising. They're going on summer vacation.
Yeah.
So by the time this airs, I think my kids will be out of school for the summer.
Yeah, mine too.
So,
right?
That'll be fun. That's the phone calls. Those are phone calls I don't miss during the day.
Mine will still have a couple days left.
Like, with the kids in school all day, I don't have to, like, these kids are driving me crazy. It's like, so it'll be, you pivot, you just keep pivoting, right?
That's all you can do.
So, all right, man. Well, it was good to sit with you. Glad to hear you had a good trip.
As always.
Yeah, we'll hit them with a little thanks, guys.
All right, guys. Next week. See you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Between Two Bridges, a business-to-business podcast. Find and follow us on your preferred podcast streaming platform. Like and subscribe, and leave us a rating and review. You can join us socially on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and X. You can email the show at info@betweentwobridgespodcast.com. Until next time, make it till you rake it.
I don't know.
Edit that part out, Nate.
He's not going to edit it out.